Hello, everyone. My name is Cherith Runyon, and I am a coordinator with Christians United for Israel. I also work with the CUFI on campus program. So thank you so much for joining us. We are here today with the amazing Lieutenant Colonel Eyal Dror, and he is the founder and commander of the IDF's Good Neighbor Unit. He served as an officer in the IDF for over 20 years in a variety of positions in the front line as a coordination and liaison officer in the coordination of government activities in the territories. So during Operation Good Neighbor, Dror orchestrated over 700 humanitarian aid missions, oversaw the establishment of a hospital for expectant mothers in which 1,000 babies have been born over that, and actually supervised the supply of thousands of tons of food, medicine, and clothing to Syrian citizens in the border region. So through this Good Neighbor campaign under Dror's command, nearly 1,500 sick children were treated, 5,000 wounded civilians evacuated from the Syrian border for treatment inside the state of Israel. So such amazing work. So Lieutenant Colonel, sir, thank you so much for being here today. It's good to have you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, or in Israel we will say now good evening. I'm so happy to be with you. Hello, everybody, and I hope that we will have some quality time, and you will be learning some details about this unique operation. So thank you for joining us, and thank you, of course, CUFI, for giving me the stage to speak with the people and share with them this story.
Absolutely. So I'm so excited to jump into this, and we'll go ahead and start with the first question. So before we move into the operation itself, can you please help those of us who haven't been in the relevant area to understand the operation?
Yeah, so with your permission, I will share some slides with our respectable audience, and I will try to describe the area. Just a second. Okay, so if we're taking a wider look about the Middle East, so we can see here, of course, the state of Israel, not a very big country. Basically, if you will put a map of all the world, I think it will be difficult for some of our audience to find the state of Israel. So this is the state of Israel, and you can see our neighbors from the south is Egypt, and then Jordan, Lebanon in the north, Syria, and Iraq. And if you want to understand exactly where the operation take care, so please take a look on this blue spot. This is area, the Golan Heights area, the northern part of the state of Israel, and we operated in this area through the Israeli-Syrian border in two regions of the Syrian people. And if we want to take a little bit closer look, we can have a look about the Israeli-Syrian border. It's something like 100 kilometers, 60 miles, and this is where is the green spot. This was the area we were operated. Back to you, Cherith.
Wonderful. That's fascinating. So where exactly are the Golan Heights, and who were and are the players currently on the border?
So we can take again look at this map to try to figure it out a little bit. If you remember the former map, we can see here just a piece of the state of Lebanon. This area, we called it Mount Hermon, the highest place in Israel, and all of these areas is Syria. Syria is 10 times bigger than the state of Israel, and the reason why we separated to three different colors, it was because the unique situation that we had because of the Syrian civil war. In the southern part, you can see the black spot. The black spot is meaning ISIS. I don't know how many people understand or know this fact that ISIS, the people that swear to slaughter the Jewish people, were sitting located on the Israeli-Syrian border. I just want you to try to imagine what the people living here in 20 villages thinking while they're opening the window and just observe that less than a mile from their homes there is ISIS. So ISIS is the black spot. The red spot is the regime which still take control about some of this area, but I put also the flags of Hezbollah and Iran, because during this 6 year or 7 years of war, the Assad regime army was helped by Iran and by Hezbollah. And the green spot was the area that took control by, we call them rebels group, free fighters group, the people that fought against the regime. And there was some of the main players in this event. Just a short notice, even in this area, which we helped the people, there was some places controlled by Al-Qaeda. This was the unique situation that the state of Israel happened to be in 2012 because the civil war.
Wow. So diving into the operation side of it, can you explain, what is Operation Good Neighbor and what inspired this amazing operation?
So we spoke about the players, but we didn't speak about, I think, the main player that was in this area. And when I'm speaking about the player, I'm speaking about people that were living in the green spot. Let's make it more correctly, 250,000 people that were living in this spot. And what inspired the operation? Those slides. When we understood that less than a mile from our border, 250,000 people were living in these terms, meaning living in tents without electricity, without water, without basic needs, without hospitals. Sorry, they have a hospital. You can see it here. This is an emergency room. This was the situation that those people were living in. And by understanding this fact, we decided that we cannot stand or sit behind the border and giving those people to die. This was the main thinking of this operation. And when we spoke a little bit about the operation, I would just mention that because of this war, we got these pictures. It began in February 2013, while IDF soldiers decided to treat Syrian residents, Syrian civilians.
Wow, that's incredible. That inspired this operation and helping the needy. So can you describe what a day in the operation can look like?
Yeah, so the day was the easy part. The night was a little bit more complicated. As you can understand, when you're operating on a border fence, which is located with Hezbollah and ISIS and Al-Qaeda, it's very, very risky area. So the days we took control to prepare ourselves for the humanitarian operation in the night. How a night seems to be like this, going the fence and giving some medical help. Now, when we're speaking about medical help, it's a whole operation. It means that since the morning time, we are preparing ourselves, because when you are doing 700 humanitarian operation in 2 years, you can calculate it by yourself. It means that sometimes, some nights, you're reaching the fence between 3 to 4 times. It's a lot of preparations. It's from me as a commander, is just to realize in which areas should I operate, to learn from what happened yesterday, to learn the intelligence of what surprises the enemies want to make us, and to prepare the soldiers to go. In this slide, we can see the meaning of humanitarian aid for a Syrian wounded guy, like in this one, for example. 4,500 wounded people evacuated from that fence to Israeli hospitals. If you can understand the meaning of 4,500, it's not in the same time. wounded coming when they are wounded. So it might be one guy, two, three, or four. And then you prepare yourself, for example, for providing food, medicine, antibiotics. You spoke about the hospital for pregnant women. It's a full operation, 6 months, almost every night we operated in order to provide the equipment that the Syrian doctors will be able to build this hospital. So it was very, very busy time, 3 years that we didn't have time to rest. And every night we met the fans, almost every night we met the Syrian people.
Unbelievable. Wow. So what was it like to actually stand on the border and wait for, quote unquote, an enemy people to arrive? What was that experience like for you and your team?
I want to use this slide to try to explain the meaning of being on a fence. As you can see, it's a dark night, but it's very easy to understand. But it's very optimistic picture. We see a woman and a child, and this was a mission. This was, for example, one of the operations that maybe we'll speak a little bit about it later, to help Syrian children. So waiting to them, it's from one hand, it's the understanding that we're going to do good thing. Good thing as human beings, doesn't matter that we are Israelis and they are Syrian, we are Jewish and they are Muslims, basically going to help people in need. On the other end, it was very tense moments because going the fence, and again, I will describe what can happen while meeting those Syrian people. Let's try to think that this woman, which is coming from a village in Syria that I don't have any information about it, I just know the name of the village. Just before she crossed the border, she got a phone call from some guy which asked her if she's going out. And when she said to him, yes, I'm going out, he told her, okay, so you should deliver the present that my friend will bring you in a few minutes to the Israeli soldiers. Now, I don't know how many of you are understanding that in the Middle East, when we are speaking about presents, it's not a nice one. It's from the kind that can make boom. So you're waiting to do a very good thing for humanity, and you don't know if this woman will deliver something. And the reason that she will deliver, because the man told her that if she will not do so, he will kill her husband and children because he's from ISIS. This was how complicated it was, waiting to people to bring them aid and understanding that you can lose your lives or your soldiers' lives. And I think this was the whole concept. We are going to do good thing for human beings and risking our lives to do so.
Wow, that's amazing. So such amazing work. So in the beginning, how did you convince the Syrians to trust you with all of this going on? How could you actually trust the Syrians who were arriving for treatment? How did that work?
The second question is very easy. We understood that the worst can happen. As soldiers, and I'm not in a humanitarian organization, I'm a soldier defending my country, protecting my soldiers. We prepared ourselves every night for the worst to come. In the IDF, we're saying, prepare the worst, pray for the best. So we prepared ourselves to the worst and did whatever it needed to be to secure ourselves from a sniper shot, from an explosive bomb on the fence, or from a suicide bomber. How the Syrians trust the state of Israel, I can tell it step by step. In the beginning, yeah, it was a lot of fear. I don't know how many of the audience understand or heard about that Syrian people were educated to hate the state of Israel. Now, it's not something that we read on Google. It's something that we heard from those mothers and those children. This was the propaganda of the Syrian regime centuries of years. They were tell them that Israel is the worst enemy. So of course, in the beginning, they were afraid. I think that what convinced them is the understanding that nobody forced us to do so. When you are going the border fence on a very rainy night, when it's foggy and snow, and open the border fence for these mothers and children to come, I think the Syrian side understand that we are here in order to help them. The easy thing, the obvious thing was to cancel it. By doing, not by speaking, by doing, they learn that we are with them. By not going to our homes, by acting 3 and 4 times every night, this trust has been built step by step. In the beginning, they refused to get food from the state of Israel, for example. They thought that we might poison them. The end of the project, well, we passed them over the 2,000 tons of food just because they trust us that we are not going, of course, to poison them. So it was a very hard job to do, and it was achieved by actions, not by speaking. In this area, people should act, people should do something. I think that this is a rule that I learned for my life. Enough for talking, let's do things, let's do good things. It was wonderful to see. It was wonderful to hear the voices of the people, the same people that in the beginning were so suspicious, that in the end of the project, they were so grateful to what we have done for them.
Wow, that's incredible. Putting your words to actions and, doing what you say you're going to do and building that trust with the Syrian people. That is absolutely incredible to hear about that experience, and knowing that this is going on. So next question would be, where did the treatment of the wounded Syrians actually take place? Where did that happen? What went on with that?
I would just say that 2 months ago, it was a CUFI leadership summit, and I was privileged to be there to participate and to speak. And what I've heard, it's exactly the same word. Enough talking, we have something to do from the CUFI leaders. It was amazing for me. This is why I'm so cherish this organization, the CUFI organization, because you are not people of talking. You also know how to talk, but you all know what to do. So this is just a remark you remind me. When the people were treated, so basically we treat them in 3 hospitals in the northern part of Israel, in the city of Tiberia, which can be familiar to some of our audience, the city of Tzfat and the city of Nahariya, but there was some severe wounded that we had to take them to Haifa, Tel Aviv, and Jerusalem hospitals because they were so severely wounded. The hospitals in the north couldn't take care for these injuries. For example, it was a fully operation that deal with 10 babies that's suffering from heart problem. All the 10th should have been dying in less than 3 months. We entered in Israel to do some procedures. I even don't know how to describe this procedure, but it was life-saving to fix their heart. 9 of them, we saved their lives. And it was opportunity just to do it in Jerusalem. We couldn't have done it in the hospitals in the north. So basically most of the hospitals in Israel were involved in this operation.
Wow, absolutely incredible to have that teamwork and that partnership, with Israel and helping with these people. So what was the IDF doing this on its own, or were there other partner organizations involved with this?
No, so the IDF do not have the ability to do such an enormous operation by itself. What we had to do is to collaborate with another NGOs, non-government organizational. Some of them were Israelis, some of them were Muslims, and some of them were Christians. Basically, I don't know how many times in history Jewish, Christian, and Muslims work together. I can almost be sure that this is the first time in history that Jewish, Christian, Muslims operating together under the command of an IDF Israeli officer to help Muslims. I think that it hasn't happened in the history. This is a particularly example for one of this amazing collaboration with a Christian organization, Friendships Unlimited, from United States. And what they've done, they built this amazing field clinic. Now, to make it a little bit complicated, because we're in the Middle East and here nothing is very simple, it was located behind the fence. And if we want to make it more complicated, it was just a mile than from the black spot that we have seen in the map, the ISIS land. Now, this clinic had doctors treated. It was a daycare clinic to treat people, 8,000 Syrian people who weren't familiar with Christian people, who weren't familiar with the United States, who thought that Christians from the state are their enemies, the big devil. In the Middle East, there is some nicknames to the US and Israel. We are the small devil, the Americans are the big devil. So 8,000 of them entered this camp, met these amazing doctors and nurses, and the children had the ability to play and to relax a little bit, not to think is today is going to be my last day, not to think is today I'm going to be raped or to be stabbed or to be kidnapped. And I think that this contribution, well, I'm sure that the IDF couldn't have done this by itself. So it was a huge pleasure for me as an Israeli commander to meet those amazing organizations and to collaborate with them in order, well, you can see the Syrian children smiling. I think that this is the purpose of this operation, to give a little bit hope to these children and the people of Syria in these very bad times.
Wow, that's so amazing to be able to look and hear you talk about how seeing their smiles and just that they don't have to think about what could be coming up next tomorrow. They can just relax and have fun. And it truly speaks to the heart of what, Israel and the IDF works to do is help people. So to call this operation unique would definitely be an understatement. So this is possibly somewhat of an unfair question, but is there an experience or perhaps two that sticks out as particularly significant that you've seen?
The toughest question is just to choose two moments because it was thousands of them. But yeah, I think that two moments that I can describe as something that I cannot forget. First, the meeting with the Syrian children. We had a specific operation through the Good Neighbor program. We called it Doctor's Visit. The meaning of it was to take care for children suffering from chronic diseases, not wounded from the war, and we brought them to the Israeli hospitals to meet the expert doctors. We brought 1,400 children. Now, to speak with them and to hear from them that, for example, they cannot see their future. To hear from a 9-year-old boy that he will be dying in a year or two because this is what happened to his friends, it can break your heart. And when we are speaking about this, to see Syrian children smiling, and this picture was taken in one of the doctor's visit operation. This moment is something that you cannot forget. To understand that the same children that just told you that they will not have future, smiling, laughing, reacting like my children who do not have such problems in their lives. So this is one of the things that I will not be able to forget. And the second one, the second moment, well, it was a very long night, but just before the operation came to an end, we had the opportunity to do one last operation. And it was to open the border fence for people who were belonging to an organization which called the White Helmets. The audience that might be interested can just Google it. There were people, Syrian people, that helped the Syrian people to survive. They were trained in Jordan, and they were the first to reach areas that has been bombed by the regime. And because of this action, they were all condemned to death by the regime. So before the regime in July 2018 conquered the area, the green area, again, we had opportunity for last operation. And in that night, you can see the border fence and you can see the people. More than 420 people crossed to Israel in one night. It was 10 hours operation. We heard the bombing and the shooting because it was face-to-face combat just a mile from us. And we had the ability to rescue 420 people, families of the White Helmets, men, women, children, babies, and take them to Jordan. And there they got new identities, new life. This is a moment that you cannot forget, a moment of saving so much people. When in European football, we will say in the 90 minutes, in the last seconds, and we did it. So these are just two of thousands of moments and memories.
Wow, that is absolutely unbelievable to just hear all of these experiences and helping these people and going into these areas that are, you know, filled with strife and all of this, and just working to help those people, just going out and fixing these situations and focusing specifically on that. It's absolutely amazing. So to end this particular portion of the presentation, do you have any final thoughts or any messages that you would like to give our viewers before we end this particular part of the presentation?
Yeah, I want, with your permission, that everybody will take a moment to take a look about this picture. For me, it emphasizes everything that happened. Because when people ask me, was it worth it? This is the answer. And the story behind this picture is a 9-year-old girl that reached the border fence with very severe diabetic. And we rescued her and we took her to one of the Israeli hospitals. She was there for 6 months. And just before she came back to Syria, she drove the flag of Israel. I think that most of the people here are familiar with this flag. And she wrote her name. It's written here, Wiham. But what she wrote is here, for me, it's so amazing. She wrote here Abu Yaqub, the father of Jacob, but not as a religious girl. Abu Yaqub was my Arabic name. So a flag of Israel drawn by a Syrian girl and dedicated to the state of Israel, to the IDF officer that saved their life. I think that this can summarize this project, the trust that has been built between Israel and some Syrian civilians, trust, and that I don't think that nobody in this region will forget. And I think that by doing this, it's the biggest achievement of this project, even more bigger than saving thousands of people's lives.
Wow, absolutely amazing. Well, hearing about the Operation Good Neighbor, all of the work that it is doing for the Syrian people, despite all of the other strife that's going on, and hearing the heart of Israel reach out to these people is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel, for this presentation. And we actually have some questions from some viewers coming in. So with your permission, we can go ahead and start the Q&A portion. So one question from Peter, he says, what leadership challenges did you face? And, you were commanding soldiers who trained for combat. How did you readjust the mindsets of your soldiers in order to facilitate this humanitarian operation?
So there was a lot of challenges being the commander of this project. Some of them was that I had to build my team from the beginning. When I reached the Golan Heights, I was a lonely soldier. I didn't have a team, and I had to build my team, to choose the people. We work without knowing what will be the consequences of every operation, because nobody did it before. So the process of learning, the procedure of learning from night to night was very important. It took a lot of time. Now, to deal with Israeli soldiers and to convince them that it is okay to be wet on nights and not to go to sleep at home, in order to help those enemies, because again, between Israel and Syria, there isn't any peace agreement. We are enemies. So to convince them to do this, well, it was a little bit difficult in the beginning, but when the soldiers, when the participants of this operation saw the smiling children, saw the worst conditions that the Syrians were living, every one of them was so excited to join, to see the combat units that protect our borders from enemies, which some of them can reach from Syria, taking tons of equipment by their hands and putting him on the other side. It was amazing as a commander, but I wasn't surprised, because some of the Israeli values are mutual aid and compassion. So yeah, in the back of the mind, you thought that they are enemies, but when you see those miserable and how bad was their lives, it was a huge privilege for all of us to join and to help. And again, it doesn't matter what religion they are and what religions we are.
Wow, so to already have that mindset to go in, we need to help these people, that was a really determining factor in them wanting to help with this humanitarian aid?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So thank you so much, Peter, for that question. I have another one from Erica. She asks, did this group of Syrians appreciate what you have done, and are you still able to keep in touch and work with them even now?
So unfortunately, we cannot talk, speak, or work with those Syrian people. Some of them, the majority, had to run away to Idlib. This is the northern part of Syria, which is still controlled by a rebels group. Unfortunately, we cannot speak with them, because today everybody that will speak from this region with Israel will automatically be perceived as an Israeli collaborator. And it's a nasty word in the Middle East to be an Israeli collaborator. So we just can pray for them and to wish that they are still living and in good terms. I know that unfortunately the condition is not good. The Syrian regime is not spending money in this region. It's a poor region. It was even before the war. So unfortunately, we cannot help with them. Today, the Syrian regime is controlling that border. He refused to get any help from Israel. When the operation came to an end a year and a little bit ago, we asked them and we share a message with them that we want to help them. They didn't even bother to respond. Again, it's against their propaganda. My dream is that one day in Europe, I will be able to meet one of these Syrian people that I helped them. And well, it will be, I think, a lovely meeting. But now we just can think about them. We left with the memories of these wonderful actions, but unfortunately, we cannot speak with them or work with them again.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep them in our prayers and continue that. So last couple questions here. This is from Randy. He says, can you speak of occasions where Syrians realized that Israel was not villainous, that as they were taught that Israel was? And was there a typical reaction or statement they would make?
I think if I understand correct the question, so I think that the flag of Israel, it's one of the kinds of appreciation of the Syrian people. When we met them and when we spoke with them, they always told us that we were used to think that you are our bitter enemies, but now we understand that you are not. We are understanding that we have been educated for lies all over the years. So I can tell you that it was one night, it was very rainy night, when we did one of the doctor's visit operation, the operation with the children. And I almost forced my colleague to cancel it because I told him it will be a horrible night with the snow and wind. It's not appropriate for women and little children to be. I was worried for their lives. But he was so determined that it will happen. And when we met on the border fence, and of course we all were wet from head to the legs, he hugged me and he told me, thank you very much that you didn't cancel it. Every night we're getting bombed from the regime. Do you think that some rain will break us? But I know that you wasn't you wasn't masked to do this operation at that night, and you did. So a lot of appreciation for all of you. This was the message from the Syrian people, and it doesn't matter if they were men, women, or children.
Wow. So last question, and then we will wrap up. So this is also from Randy. He says, do you know how the word was spread on the Syrian side, if it even was, that if a person needed medical care, they had to be near the border with Israel in the middle of the night?
Can you ask it again,
Yeah.
please?
So do you know how the word was spread on the Syrian side of it, if there was word being spread that, you know, if a person needed some medical care from your operation, that they had to be near the Israeli border or be near the border with Israel in the middle of the night? Do you know how word was spread with the Syrians about that?
Yeah. So we had colleagues in the other side of the fence. In the beginning, it was medical teams, doctors and paramedics, and it spread in the second stage of the operation in 2017 when we helped them with other equipment, not just medical, to let's say respectable people of the villages. And they knew how to contact me. I had special techniques to communicate with them. Unfortunately, of course, we cannot speak about this in the webinar, but it was well known how to reach me for everybody who needed help in the Syrian side. Of course, that nobody could have reached by himself to the border fence because, again, it's an enemy country. You don't know who is reaching. So it was, and we built it, this coordination procedure to know exactly that we will not be surprised from arriving people. It was very, very important work and procedure that we will have the net of the people from all around the area, and then to make it in what hour, in which day this team can arrive, those people can arrive, whether it's wounded people or whether it's people that needed, for example, flour to make some bread for eating. So all of this coordination with the Syrian was a very, very unique procedure. And again, I think that most of the people, I will not say 100%, but everybody from the Syrian people that want to speak with Abu Yaqub knew how to reach me.
Wow, fascinating. Well, thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel Dror, for being on our webinar today, head of Operation Good Neighbor. It was so amazing to hear about the good work that you're doing with Syrians and really talking about the heart of Israel and what they work to do. So thank you everyone for joining. Please remember that we do have webinars in the future. So please join us for those, and thank you all for joining, and we will see you all in the next one. Thank you all so much, and you have a great day. God bless.
Bye-bye.